Ilara was not like anyone else in the small coastal town. People often noticed her when she walked down the quiet streets or visited the market. Her skin seemed pale but soft, almost like it was lit from inside. Her eyes changed color depending on the light, sometimes a deep green, sometimes silver, and sometimes a strange shade of blue that no one could quite name. She spoke gently, always polite, but there was something about her that felt different. She never talked about where she came from, and whenever someone asked, she would smile and change the subject. Mark, a history teacher at the local school, first met her at the town library on a rainy afternoon. He was reading about ancient civilizations when she sat down at the table across from him with a stack of astronomy books. They started talking when she noticed the book in his hands. She asked questions about human history, about the rise and fall of empires, and about how people recorded their past. Her interest seemed genuine, and Mark found himself enjoying the conversation. That day, they spoke for nearly 2 hours, and when the rain finally stopped, they exchanged a friendly goodbye. Over the next few weeks, they kept meeting, sometimes by chance at the library, sometimes in the park, and sometimes when they bumped into each other at the grocery store. Eventually, they began meeting on purpose. They would take long walks by the beach, the sound of waves mixing with their conversations about stars, planets, and the mysteries of life. Mark was fascinated by how much she knew about the universe. She could name constellations without looking them up, and she talked about space travel as if she had experienced it herself. But for all her knowledge, Ilara was guarded. She listened more than she spoke about her own life. She never mentioned family or friends from before she arrived in town. Mark assumed she had moved from far away, maybe from another country, and preferred to keep her past private. Still, her kindness and gentle humor made him trust her. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, Ilara and Mark sat on a weathered bench by the shore. She was unusually quiet, staring at the horizon as if she were waiting for something to appear. Finally, she turned to him and said softly, "Mark, I want to show you something I've never shown anyone before." Her voice carried both warmth and a strange seriousness. Mark tilted his head, curious. "What is it?" he asked with a smile. "My home," she said simply. "It's not far from here, but it's different. I think you might understand it in a way no one else could." He laughed lightly at first, thinking she meant a uniquely designed house or some hidden piece of property. But her tone didn't match a casual invitation. She looked at him with steady eyes, as if she was trying to see his answer before he spoke. "You want me to come tonight?" he asked. "Yes," she replied without hesitation. "Tonight is the right time." Mark hesitated for only a moment before nodding. He trusted Ilara. In the months they had known each other, she had never given him a reason to doubt her. If she wanted to share something personal, he wanted to be there for her. They left the beach and walked to where her sleek black car was parked. It wasn't like most cars in town. It had smooth, flowing lines and no visible brand. The engine was so quiet that when it started, it was barely a whisper. Mark got into the passenger seat, still curious about where this was going. As they drove out of town, the streets grew darker and quieter. The familiar shops and houses faded into thick forest. The road twisted and turned, with tall trees casting long shadows across the windshield. Mark noticed how Ilara drove with complete confidence, even on the narrow paths where most drivers slowed down. "Do you come out here often?" he asked. "Every day," she said, her eyes on the road. "It's where I feel at home." The deeper they went, the more Mark realized he had never been this far into the forest. Occasionally, he saw faint lights between the trees, moving in ways that didn't look like car headlights or lanterns. They seemed to shift and dance, almost like glowing insects, but much larger. Those lights, what are they? He asked. You'll see, Ilara replied softly, her voice almost a whisper. After nearly 40 minutes, the road ended in a clearing, and there, in the middle of that open space, stood a structure that made Mark's breath catch in his throat. It wasn't a house, not in any way he understood. The walls were smooth and metallic, reflecting the night sky like liquid silver. There were no doors he could see, and the windows shimmered as though made of water instead of glass. The shape was strange, curving upward like a shell with patterns of faint light moving across its surface. Ilara parked the car and stepped out. Mark followed, his eyes scanning every detail of the building. It's beautiful, he said, unable to stop himself. Thank you, she replied, walking toward it. Come, we should go inside. Mark frowned. Inside? But there's no door. She smiled slightly. Not the kind you're used to. Then she reached out and touched the wall. Instantly, a section of it rippled like water and slid away, revealing an opening that glowed faintly from within. Without another word, she stepped inside. Mark's curiosity outweighed his hesitation. He took a deep breath and followed her into the unknown. The air inside was warmer, with a faint humming sound all around. The walls were smooth, and strange lights moved through them like streams of energy. Objects floated in the air, small glowing orbs that shifted colors as they passed. A large panel on one side displayed moving images of places he didn't recognize. Vast landscapes, strange buildings, and skies with colors he had never seen before. Ilara, what is this place? He asked in awe. She turned to him, her eyes, reflecting the soft blue light of the room. My home, she said again. And tonight you will understand why I brought you here. Mark didn't realize it yet, but this was the night his life would change forever. Mark stood just inside the strange glowing entryway, his heart beating faster than usual. The air felt different here, warmer, softer, and almost alive. It carried a faint scent that he couldn't place, something between fresh rain and blooming flowers. The gentle humming sound seemed to come from the walls themselves, as if the entire building was breathing. Ilara walked ahead without looking back, moving gracefully as if she knew every step by heart. Mark followed, his eyes darting around to take in the strange space. There was no furniture in the way he understood it, no chairs, tables, or shelves. Instead, there were smooth platforms that rose from the floor when she touched the walls, and shapes that shifted when she passed her hand over them. One wall caught his attention. It was a vast panel, shimmering with moving images of landscapes. Some showed deserts with silver sand, others had oceans glowing under two moons, and others displayed mountains that floated in the sky like islands. He had never seen anything like them, not even in the most creative science fiction films. What is this? Mark asked, pointing toward the panel. Windows, Ilara replied without slowing down, but not like the ones you know. They show places far from here. Mark wanted to ask more, but something in her tone made him stay quiet. She seemed focused, almost tense, as if tonight was not just a casual visit. They reached a curved hallway, the floor beneath their feet glowing faintly with each step. It led to a larger chamber, and when they entered, Mark's eyes widened again. In the center of the room was a table, if it could be called that, made of a smooth, glass-like material. But it wasn't still. The surface shifted and changed shape, forming patterns and symbols that he didn't understand. Ilara motioned for him to sit on one of the curved seats that rose from the floor. When he did, it adjusted to his height and shape, fitting him perfectly. I wanted to bring you here because you've been curious, she began, her voice calm but serious. Curiosity is a rare thing. Many people fear the unknown. You search for it. Mark gave a small laugh. Well, I teach history. I guess I've always been interested in things beyond what we see every day. Her gaze lingered on him. Yes, but your curiosity is different. It's not just about the past. It's about everything. Time, space, life itself. Mark tilted his head, wondering where this conversation was going. You make it sound like you've been studying me. Instead of answering directly, she changed the subject. You've noticed I live far from the town. You've noticed I'm different. He nodded. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't. She leaned forward slightly. Tonight, I'll show you the truth. But first, I need you to trust me completely. No matter what you see or hear, promise me you will listen before you decide what to believe. Mark hesitated, then nodded. All right, I trust you. Her lips curved into a small smile. Good. Then we can begin. She touched the center of the shifting table, and immediately the room dimmed. The walls lit up with streams of light, flowing like rivers. In the center, a column of glowing mist rose into the air, forming shapes that slowly became clear. Mark realized they were maps of the stars. These, she said softly, are not the skies you know. They are from my home. Mark stared, trying to take it all in. The stars were arranged in patterns he had never seen. Some glowed in clusters, others swirled in spirals. In the center of the largest spiral was a bright, pulsing star surrounded by several planets, each glowing with a unique color. My home is not on Earth, she continued. It never was. I came here for a reason, and until now I've told no one. Mark felt his throat go dry. You're saying you're not from this planet? She didn't flinch. Yes. He opened his mouth to speak, but she raised a hand. I know this is difficult to accept, but you've seen enough tonight to know that I'm not lying. Mark thought about the strange lights outside, the rippling walls, the landscapes on the panels. None of it could be explained by normal technology, and yet, a part of him still struggled to believe it fully. Alara stood and walked to the wall, pressing her hand against it. A section dissolved away, revealing a long corridor with walls of transparent crystal. Beyond them, Mark saw what looked like a forest, but the trees glowed softly and the leaves shimmered as though lit from within. The sky above was dark, but it wasn't the same as the one outside earlier. It was filled with faint streaks of light, as if countless shooting stars were frozen in place. Mark stepped closer, his eyes wide. Where are we? This, Alara said, is still on Earth, but it is a place hidden from the world. My home is not just a house, it is a bridge between here and my world. That is why I wanted you to come tonight. They walked along the corridor, the glowing forest outside moving with a gentle breeze. The air here was different again, calm, with a faint vibration in the ground that seemed to hum through Mark's feet. At the end of the corridor, another shimmering doorway appeared. Alara stopped in front of it and turned to him. When you step through here, you will see the truth with your own eyes. After that, you will have a choice. Mark felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. He didn't know what was beyond the doorway, but every part of him wanted to see it. Are you ready? She asked. He took a deep breath. Yes. Alara touched. The doorway and the light within began to swirl slowly like a pool of liquid silver. Without another word, she stepped through and Mark followed, straight into the unknown. Mark stepped through the swirling doorway and for a moment his vision blurred. It felt like passing through cool mist, yet there was no dampness on his skin. The air on the other side was softer, warmer, and full of a faint fragrance he could not name. When his eyes adjusted, he found himself standing in a vast open space, nothing like the rooms they had just left behind. The floor was smooth and glossy, reflecting the soft light from above. The ceiling, or perhaps the sky, was high and curved, painted with shifting colors like the aurora borealis. Strange shapes floated in the air, transparent orbs carrying small streams of light, and thin, ribbon-like beams that drifted lazily, as if moved by an unseen breeze. Ilara walked ahead, her steps light and certain. She seemed at home here in a way Mark had never seen before. Her face was calm, but her eyes held a brightness, as though this place awakened something deep inside her. "This is one of my most private spaces," she said softly. "No one else here has ever seen it, except me." Mark glanced around, feeling the weight of her words. "Why me, then?" Instead of answering right away, she led him to a long, curved table in the center of the room. It looked almost alive, its surface glowing faintly and shifting colors as they approached. Two seats rose up from the floor as if responding to their presence. "Sit," she said, gesturing to one of them. Mark sat cautiously. The seat adjusted itself until it fit him perfectly, supporting his back and legs in a way that felt natural. Ilara sat across from him and touched the center of the table. Immediately, a soft humming began, and the surface lit up. A projection appeared between them, suspended in the air, small at first, then growing until it filled much of the space above. The table. Mark's breath caught. The projection was not of a single place, but of many, floating images shifting slowly, one fading into another. He saw oceans that glowed with light beneath two moons. He saw mountains made of crystal that sparkled even under dim skies. He saw enormous trees, their branches curling into spiral shapes, and vast cities with towers that seemed to be carved from glass. "They're beautiful," Mark whispered. "They are my home," Ilara replied. "Each image is a place I have been, or a place that still lives in my memory." Mark looked at her. "So you really are?" "Yes," she said simply, meeting his gaze. "I am not human. My people live far from here. We travel between worlds, though not in the way you might imagine." Mark's thoughts raced. The strangeness of her house, the way she spoke about the stars, the lights in the forest. It all made sense now. And yet, a small voice inside him kept asking if this was really possible. "Why tell me now?" he asked quietly. Ilara leaned back slightly. "Because time is running short. My purpose on Earth is nearly complete, and before I leave, I must decide whether to go alone or to bring someone with me." Mark blinked. "You mean, you're asking me?" She nodded. "But before you decide, you need to understand more." The images shifted again. This time he saw her people, not clearly at first, but in glimpses. Tall figures with eyes like hers, wearing garments that shimmered like liquid light. They moved gracefully, their gestures slow and deliberate, as if every motion had meaning. "My people are not conquerors," she explained. "We do not take what is not ours, but we do seek connection. With minds, with thoughts, with ways of seeing the universe that are different from our own." Mark leaned forward. "And that's why you came here? To connect?" Her gaze softened. "Partly, but there is more. Some humans, very few, have a rare ability. They can see patterns others cannot. They can sense truths hidden beneath the surface. Your mind works in ways most of your kind cannot understand." Mark frowned slightly. "You think I have that ability?" "I know you do," she said firmly. "I've seen it in our conversations, in the questions you ask, in the way you describe things you've never experienced." Mark didn't know how to respond. He remembered times he had dreams so vivid they felt real, or moments when he had sudden insights about people or events without knowing why. But he had always dismissed them as coincidence or imagination. Ilara stood and walked around the table. "I didn't invite you here just to tell you about my home." she said, her voice quieter now. I invited you because I believe you could be a bridge between our worlds. A bridge? Yes. Someone who understands both sides. Someone who can carry knowledge from one to the other. Mark thought about this, unsure if he was flattered, scared, or both. That's a lot to take in. I know, she said gently. I am asking you to trust me more than you have ever trusted anyone. But I will not force you. You will choose. The projection above the table faded, and the room dimmed again. For a moment they sat in silence, the humming of the walls the only sound. Then Alara moved to another part of the room and pressed her hand to the wall. A section opened, revealing a wide window. Mark stood and walked to it. Beyond the glass was not the glowing forest he had seen earlier, but something else entirely. A sky filled with streaks of light moving in every direction, as if the stars themselves were traveling. Below, a vast plain stretched out, dotted, with shapes that might have been buildings or living structures. This is not Earth, Mark whispered. No, Alara said beside him. It is a view from my world. The technology here allows me to keep a window open to it at all times. When I am ready to return, I will step through. And if you wish, you can step through with me. Mark stared at the scene, his mind spinning. Part of him wanted to believe without question. Another part feared that once he stepped through, there would be no way back. Alara placed a hand on his shoulder. We still have time before you decide, she said softly. But not much. He turned to look at her. Her eyes glowed faintly, and for the first time, he realized they were the exact color of the lights streaking across the alien sky beyond the window. Something deep inside him whispered that his life was about to change forever, whether he was ready for it or not. Mark stayed by the wide window for a long moment, unable to pull his gaze away from the sight beyond it. The sky in that world shimmered with colors that didn't exist on Earth, soft golds, deep violets, and shifting streaks of blue light that curved gracefully across the horizon. The land below seemed to breathe, as if the entire surface was alive. Alara watched him quietly, giving him space to absorb what he was seeing. She didn't rush to speak, but when she finally did, her voice carried a deeper weight than before. Mark, she said softly, you've trusted me enough to come this far. Now you deserve to know everything, why I came here, why I sought you out, and why tonight matters more than any other night. He turned to face her, his curiosity sharpened. I've been wondering about that since we left town. Why me, and why now? She walked to the table in the center of the room and touched its surface again. The glowing mist rose between them, but this time, it did not form landscapes or cities. Instead, it showed patterns, circles, spirals, and lines that shifted and reformed in endless combinations. My people, she began, have been traveling between worlds for a very long time. But our way of travel is not through machines, as humans imagine. We use thought. Our minds are the vessels, and our bodies follow. For this to be possible, the mind must have a certain quality, a pattern that allows it to connect with the universe itself. Mark stared at the shifting symbols. And you think I have that pattern? She met his eyes. I don't think. I know. I recognized it the moment I first spoke to you in the library. The way you described history. The way you spoke about connections between events. It's the same way my people understand the flow of existence. Mark frowned slightly, trying to take it in. So you came here looking for someone like me? Yes, she admitted. I was sent with that mission. But finding such a person is rare. Most humans are closed, locked inside the limits of what they believe is possible. You are not. He gave a small, uneasy laugh. I never thought being open-minded would get me noticed by someone from another world. Her expression remained serious. It is more than open-mindedness. It is a bridge in your mind, a link. My people believe this link could connect our worlds in ways we have never managed before. Mark looked down at the glowing patterns. So, you want me to come with you? To your world? Yes, she said. But it is not just an invitation. It is a request. My people wish to learn from you, to see your thoughts and understand how you see reality. In return, you would see things no human has seen, and you would help shape the first lasting bond between our kinds. He took a slow breath. That's a lot. You realize you're asking me to leave everything I know. I know, she said softly, and that is why I have waited until now to tell you. I wanted you to see enough to understand this isn't a trick. I wanted you to feel the truth before you heard it. Mark moved away from the table and began pacing. What would happen if I say no? Her voice was calm. Then I will return, alone. Your life will go on much the same, except you will always wonder what might have been. That last sentence struck him harder than he expected. The thought of never knowing what lay beyond that shimmering doorway was almost painful. But another thought troubled him. What if going meant he could never return? As if reading his concern, Elara said, I will not lie to you. If you come with me, it will not be easy to return. Travel is possible in both directions, but not often. If you leave, you must be prepared to stay for a long time. Mark stopped pacing and looked at her. Why me, specifically? Surely you could take anyone with an open mind. Her eyes softened. It is not just your mind, Mark. It is your nature. You seek truth without fear, and you see value in what is different. That is rare. In my people's eyes, you are the right choice. He exhaled slowly. And if I agree? When do we leave? Her gaze flicked toward the glowing doorway on the far side of the room. Tonight. The alignment is right, and the path between our worlds is open. It will not remain so for long. Mark felt his heart pounding. Everything inside him wanted to see what was beyond that light. But the weight of the choice pressed down on him, leaving behind his home, his job, his friends, and stepping into a place where nothing would be familiar. Elara walked closer, standing just in front of him. I cannot make this decision for you, but I will tell you this, opportunities like this do not come twice. Whatever you choose, it will shape the rest of your life. Mark looked past her, toward the swirling light. The hum of the walls seemed to grow louder, as if the entire room was aware of the moment. His hands tightened into fists, then loosened again. Finally, he asked, Why do I feel like I've been heading toward this moment my whole life? Because you have, she said quietly. They stood in silence for a while, the shifting colors of her world painting their faces. Then Elara extended her hand. Her eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the light of the portal. When you are ready, she said, I will take you through. Mark didn't answer yet. But deep inside, he knew. The decision was already forming. Mark stood frozen for a moment, his eyes locked on the swirling doorway across the room. The light inside it moved like liquid silver, folding and unfolding on itself as if inviting him to step closer. The low hum in the air seemed to vibrate in his chest, quickening the beat of his heart. He could feel his thoughts racing, one moment filled with wonder, the next filled with doubt. Alara's hand was still extended toward him, steady and patient. She didn't rush him, but her gaze told him she understood how heavy this choice was. If you step through, she said quietly, you will see a world unlike anything you've known. But you must accept that you will not be the same person when you return, if you choose to return at all. Mark swallowed hard. And if I stay? Her voice softened. Then you will remain here, living the life you've always known. But there will always be a part of you wondering what you left behind. The question will follow you. He let his eyes wander around the room. Everything here, this living, breathing space, was already proof that the impossible could be real. If he turned away now, it would be like waking from a dream and pretending it had never happened. He thought about his quiet apartment in town, the familiar streets, the routine of teaching history classes, and the evenings spent reading by lamplight. It was a comfortable life, but it suddenly felt small compared to what stood before him. Finally, he looked back at Alara. If I go, I need to know you'll keep your promise, that I'll be safe. Her expression didn't waver. You have my word. I will protect you with everything I have. Something in her tone told him this was more than a casual assurance. It was a vow. Mark stepped forward slowly, closing the space between them. The closer he came to the portal, the more he could feel its pull, like a gentle current drawing him in. The light within seemed to grow brighter, casting shifting patterns across their faces. Alara turned slightly toward the doorway, her hand still reaching for his. Once you step through, the path will close behind us. There will be no turning back until the alignment opens again. Mark nodded, feeling the finality of her words. He thought about how strange it was. Most people imagined life-changing moments coming with warning, with time to prepare. But here he was, faced with a decision that could alter his entire existence, and all he had was a heartbeat to decide. He took her hand. Her grip was warm and steady, grounding him even as the sight of the swirling light seemed to pull him away from everything he knew. "Ready?" she asked. He managed a small smile. "As ready as I'll ever be." Together they stepped forward. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the world shifted. It wasn't like walking through a door. It was like falling into light. Colors streamed past him in shapes he couldn't name, twisting and bending in ways that defied sense. He felt weightless, yet he could feel the warmth of Alara's hand holding his firmly. There was no up, no down, only movement. He heard faint sounds, like whispers carried on a distant wind, but he couldn't understand the words. It felt like they were passing through layers of reality, each one more vibrant and alive than the last. Then, just as suddenly, it ended. Mark's feet touched solid ground, and he blinked against the sudden brightness. When his vision cleared, his breath caught. They stood in the middle of a vast open plain under two suns, one golden, the other pale blue. The light they cast mingled in the air, painting the landscape in shimmering colors. In the distance, a city rose like something out of a dream. Its towers were tall and slender, shaped like flowing waves, and they glowed faintly as if alive. The air was warm but fresh, carrying scents both sweet and strange. Above, the sky was filled with slow-moving streaks of light, not like clouds, but like living streams that shifted and curled lazily. Mark turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. This is real." Alara smiled, her eyes brighter than ever. "Welcome, Mark. This is my home." As they began walking toward the city, he noticed the ground beneath them wasn't like Earth soil. It had a faint shimmer, and when the light from the suns hit it, tiny sparks of color danced across its surface. In the distance, he could see tall trees with leaves shaped like spirals, their branches swaying even though there was no wind. As they walked, beings began to appear, Ilara's people. They were tall and graceful, their skin in shades ranging from pale silver to deep bronze, and their eyes glowing faintly in different colors. Some wore flowing garments that shifted hue with their movements, while others wore more simple robes. Each of them paused to look at Mark, their expressions calm but curious. They know you're from Earth, Ilara said softly. You are the first human they have ever met. Mark's heart raced, but there was no fear in their gazes, only interest, as though they were studying something precious and rare. When they reached the city, Mark's eyes widened again. The streets seemed to be made of a smooth, glass-like surface that reflected the towers above. Small streams of light ran along the edges, weaving intricate patterns. The buildings had no sharp corners, only soft curves, and some seemed to float slightly above the ground. Ilara led him to a large open plaza where a fountain of glowing water rose and fell in slow, graceful arcs. Around it, several of her people had gathered, speaking in a melodic language that Mark didn't understand, but strangely, he felt like he could almost catch the meaning. They will want to speak with you, Ilara told him. They will want to know how you see the universe. Mark laughed quietly in disbelief. I'm just a history teacher. Her gaze softened. You're more than that. You always have been. As he looked around at the faces watching him, Mark felt the weight of the choice he had made. It wasn't just about seeing another world. It was about becoming part of something much bigger than himself. Somewhere deep inside, he knew there was no going back to the way things were. And strangely, he didn't want to. The suns above shone brightly, casting long, shifting shadows across the plaza. Ilara stood beside him, her expression calm but proud. In that moment, Mark understood that his journey was only beginning.